All right, hello and welcome to the Amherst Conservation Commission meeting of May 14th, 2025. The time is 7:04. We have all members present except Laura. At some point, I think Laura's term expires too, so you'll have to let me know and to stop reporting that, Erin. Staff tonight is Erin Jock, Conservation Agent, and Dave Zomick, our Director, could not make it tonight. So first up is chair report. I don't have anything. Director report, Dave Zomick is not present. So I think we're gonna, if everyone's okay with it, dive into our land management subcommittee discussion on forestry. So hopefully everybody had a chance to review the 3-pager that Alex provided. Andre, I saw some comments of yours. Thanks for doing that. And thank you, Alex, again, for putting that well-written piece together. So we had talked about doing this sort of live. We discussed the open meeting law compliance. So I think the plan is that we hear everybody's comments as we go through the document, which Erin is planning on sharing. And we will make any changes and comments and suggestions as we go. So Erin, are you able to put something up on the screen live or okay?
I have a comment before we begin.
Sure, Alex.
In terms of note taking to make life easier for Bruce, I suggest that we not note every little comment that's made, but rather just that we reviewed it. And however Bruce wants to sum it up would be fine with me, but
Sure, and if Bruce, you want to link the document, that might work if it's
Sure, that works.
all right. Okay. Would anyone like to volunteer to go first in the review? Okay, so we're using Andre, so that's easier. Yeah.
Please make it bigger.
Yeah, I could if you want, I could just get started.
Sure, thanks.
Can you make it bigger, please?
All right. Just I ask a little patience in that what I'm trying to do is figure out, or I haven't looked at my review recently, so I just want to make sure that I'm giving you reasons that make sense. I just added and pathogens on page 1, which
yeah, agree. Good catch.
all right. Now, the next or number 7 here says salvage following destructive storms and wind events, harvesting standing trees for firewood and timber are not commissioned purposes for forest management. Whatever clarification, I really didn't understand what that meant.
Alex, do you want to respond, or I think I remember the conversation enough to, if you want me to.
Only just, what is it you didn't understand?
That sentence, harvesting standing trees for firewood and timber are not commissioned purposes.
Yeah, we're not going to be harvesting timber for income, or it's not a purpose for managing our forests to conduct what I'll call standard forestry practices of harvest.
So, okay. So, goals, you mean, that's what you're, okay. Well, if it's clear, I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, the discussion around it was, I think Alex was trying to preempt that we wouldn't do that. Yeah.
I will say, Andre, that other land owned by the town of Amherst, which is managed by DPW, they do harvest, or up until very recently, they do have planned harvests. And so far on conservation land, that was not an objective.
How about something a little more direct than not that I mean I agree with what you're saying, like harvesting standing trees for firewood and timber, or the Conservation Commission does not plan to harvest standing blah blah blah. I don't know. Regardless, just pointing out that that I found the wording a little bit confusing. It doesn't. It's neither here nor there.
Well, if we say does not plan to, we could change our mind. I wanted a clear statement.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just moving the commission to the subject in the sentence structure, that'll clarify the commission. Commission goals and purposes do not include harvesting standing trees for firewood, timber.
It works for me.
Yeah,
That's
I was gonna
perfect.
suggest the same thing.
Yep.
And I included firewood for obvious reasons.
Mhm.
But I will comment that we have seen in the presentation of the Amherst staff that takes care of trails and whatnot, that they have had a lot of trees falling over and they've had to cut them up and I don't know if that's classified as salvage, but that's not forest management. That's trail maintenance and things of that sort. But so I didn't want to talk about that in the document, but we did see them having to deal with, I think, over 100 trees that toppled over, which is going to be happening more and more with climate change and wind events happening more and more often. But I didn't go into that here.
Sounds good. A couple other minor things like, I don't know where the period goes and all that doesn't matter to me much. Page or on line 42.
Yeah, so on the web address, I understand Andre thinks that shouldn't be in there because it's subject to change. And I understand exactly what he's talking about, and he's correct. It does change from time to time, but we have hyperlinks all through this document. So I'd rather put this aside. If you want to delete it, that's fine with me, but I'm just telling you, there are other hyperlinks in the entire policy document.
Okay, we
So
can maybe beef up the
there needs to be a
references to
global-
describe it then.
There needs to be a global decision whether to leave
Sure.
them in or take them out rather than just one by one.
Could
I
we
think
put
it's
it in the appendix and just put a reference here and then have it more specifically spelled out in the appendix?
Or just the references, we could describe what it is and then put the hyperlink, and I think we should just do that globally. And I just want to remind people that we're shooting for a 20-minute conversation here, so
Okay,
I
so
think-
I'll just, if I could, I'll just make a comment that I didn't have a problem with any of Andre's comments. If
okay,
that speeds things up.
sure, neither did I. Bruce, go ahead.
Just want to ask that Aaron repair the copy editing marks that are in there, line 41, line 42. So
I'm sorry, what do you mean, Bruce? Repair the copy editing?
in line 41, the word "and" has been crossed out. So
Yep.
that's in line 41, there was a word misspelled, or there was an issue about the punctuation. You see the red under control?
Oh,
Well, yeah, so I think it was for an example and he just took out and,
Oh,
so it's
con-
for example.
there's some problem with control, but we can do an
Just fix
editorial.
those. I'm
suite.
asking
Yeah,
to fix them at the end. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna edit this one, but I'll circle it on the hard copy because it's
Okay.
just, yeah.
All right. Well, I suppose that if there's no issues with, I mean, let's go back now down to 68, line 68, trophic levels. I would just kind of spell it out a little bit more for the readers. Unless, I mean, we're all, I think a lot of us have the technical knowledge of what these things mean, but we're not writing it for us. So I would, I suggest kind of explaining it, or if you don't think so, that's all good too.
we could just do it in parentheses. What did you suggest? Food chains or levels of the
sorry?
food chain?
Yeah, levels of the food chain.
Yeah.
Yep. And just above that, we have Quercus, the Latin genus of the oaks. I would put that at the first mention of oaks. I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah, but we haven't done, as you point out, we haven't done it. So we can just remove Quercus and keep it.
sounds good. Just a misspelling on 93. No biggie. I'm done. Next.
Thanks, Andre.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments, feedback? Rachel?
Yeah, no, this is great, and I agree with Andre's comments too. The last paragraph, where it's outlining different types of events. I wonder if we could insert before the last "and," where we say "and enhance wildlife habitat and conservation land." Prior to that, state something to the effect of address other threats due to invasive species or climate change. Because there may be other things that come up that we don't know about in the future.
Which line are you on, Rachel?
Let's see. I guess it's line 99. So address problematic monotypic stands, comma, and then say something to the effect of address other threats due to invasive species or climate change.
Excellent, I like it.
And
I
I can email.
agree with him.
Yeah.
Okay, I see Aaron writing it all down. Anyone else?
I'll just clarify that all the stuff in the header is going to come out. That's not part of the official document.
Right, just tracking our
Right.
iterations. All right, well, thank you again, Alex, for being the keeper and writer of this, and everybody for your reviews and good comments. So I think we're gonna vote. We're looking for a vote now to accept this forest management component of the, what are we calling this? Land use policy
With the noted changes.
with noted changes discussed tonight.
I move to accept the new forest management regulations put together by the subcommittee with the discussed modifications.
A second.
Andre on the motion, Rachel on the second, Bruce,
Aye.
Alex, Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, thank you everyone for your diligence on that. Andre?
Real quick, great job, folks. You guys did a great job on this, especially you, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can tell Alex has a solid background in the field on this one. Okay, so I understand that we have Jeff from the Hitchcock here to present some monitoring tonight, so I don't want to lose sight of that. So let's bring him in, Aaron, and we'll hear about the Hitchcock Center Volunteer IGMAS survey.
Right. I think
Hi,
I'm
Jeff.
now. Hey
Yeah,
there. I'm
welcome.
now a panelist.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure.
So I think you've talked to Dave and Aaron already, and we, I guess, asked just to hear a little bit more about this ongoing and long-term monitoring that you guys do. So please enlighten us.
Sure. So we've been like since the salamander tunnels, I'm sure you're all aware, were like put in the 80s, and the bucket brigades were there for years before that. I don't know exactly when the Hitchcock Center started getting involved, but for sure they were involved with the tunnels being put in. And was it Dave Winston, I think his name was, as Commander Salamander. And I've got some data going back to I think the 90s, and one of the presentations I have in terms of egg mass collections. And I kind of took over for Ted Watt when he retired, and have been doing pretty much annual surveys of the egg masses since then, and like communicating with the landowner that's adjacent to the maple swamp when I do that. And I guess but in general, it's like Ted used to do like public adult programs back in the before COVID essentially, and then right before COVID and after COVID, I was taking a class in to be able to count, and then I think last year was it you and I, Erin, that did it? I can't remember if that was last year or 2 years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and then maybe I went with the class again last year, and then this past year they opened it up to the public to see if there'd be people who are interested, and mentioned that as part of like we do a training for Henry Street crossing that goes with like to be able to count how many salamanders there is. So we're looking at it as an opportunity for environmental education for the community, as well as wanting to like make sure that people come properly prepared, and that they ideally don't handle the salamanders and don't go up into the land and all the things that we'd want them to do. And with the roads starting to be closed this past like 3 years ago now, trying to have it be more educational versus just worrying about safety. And then the egg mass counting that happens, I opened it up to the public, and I had 2 people sign up, and only one person made it. So it's essentially me and one other person. But the nice thing about that is, like, in terms of the count itself, is that we had a record count this year. So I think that the closing of the street over the past 3 years is starting to have an impact on the population. And I'm just opening up, and I have a slide that I've been using. I've got data going back to 1993. There hasn't been a count every year then, but there's been a count almost every year since I started, from like 2016 through 2024. There's been many counts, and the highest was 2018. Like sometimes the counts, like not all of the population of salamanders necessarily move in a single year. So like, but usually you assume about 50%. And in 2017, there was 23. The next year after that, there was 126. So it was like a huge jump. That's the most we ever had. Before that, the highest count was 106 in 2006. And it probably was averaging about 70. And then in 2019, I went too early. There's just spermatophores. 2020, it was 97. 2021, it was 16. 2023, it was 56. And in 2023, that was the first year we had our roads closed. And it was, I closed the roads a little bit too late because of like not knowing, and there was a massive casualties of the male salamanders, unfortunately. So we had 56 then. 2024, we had 69. This past year, we had 142, which is like a record from what I can see. And like in 2020, there was like there's 2 different pools that are being
Jeff,
counted.
do you want to
essentially.
share a screen? Are you looking at a
Sure.
plot? We'd love to see
Sure,
that.
I can do
think.
that
Yeah,
if
thanks.
I'm allowed to. Sending request.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to look at long-term monitoring data, and we were, I
Let's
think,
see.
really interested
So
to
I
see
tried
if
to do
trends.
share. All right,
Okay.
now I can. All right, so I will share this screen. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation now? So I haven't put in the 2025 information yet, but you can see that we have 2 sets of populations: the red maple swamp, which is where the tunnels are, and then there's the railroad tracks, which is essentially there's like 3 homes. On the other side of those 3 homes is another pool, and there's been very few, like essentially a declining number of egg masses in that pool. You can see back like it was like 59. It was more sometimes than we would find in 93 in that than we did in the others, in 30s and 20s, and it went down to like like 6 and then 1, then 13 the first time we closed the roads, and then 1 2024, and we had like 19 this year. So like it's just like to me, it's saying that closing the roads is making that pool, which wasn't protected by the salamander, by the tunnels, potentially that we'll see an increase in that, and it just shows even more of a impact of closing the road.
Great.
And then the number for the swamp was 122. So in both cases, it was a record for me. But like there's still a long way off from where the egg mass population was back in '93, or like even in 2013. Like there's room for that to go up again.
Yeah. Thank you. I see Bruce's hand up, so I'm gonna take some questions. Bruce, go ahead.
You may have said, but what species of salamander are we talking about?
Sorry, the yellow spotted salamander for Hitchcock. So I've almost exclusively seen that. I mean, there's been I know that people have seen like the redback salamanders, which don't actually go to the breeding pools on rainy nights. I've heard that there's 1 or 2. I think I can't remember if it was a blue spotted or if it was a Jefferson, but I've never seen anything besides yellow spotted. But I know that there's been on occasion 1 or 2 other types of species that have been seen. But I can't verify that for myself because I've never seen that.
Great. Any other
And there's
questions?
also a good movement of wood frogs and peepers and some green frogs as well there. I
Alex.
see Alex has a question.
I have 2 questions if we have time, and I'll let the chair determine if we have time. Could you
Sure, go
Could you
ahead.
briefly explain their life cycle? And I also am wondering how far into the woodland do they travel to spend the rest of the year?
Sure. So I think that they go approximately like a quarter of a mile is like their range to get to a breeding pool. So it's essentially all the way up the hill past where like Eversource has their road and they decided to put that little bridge in. And in terms of their life cycle, they can live an extraordinarily long time. Like I think they can live like there's been recorded over 30 years is I think that the longest lived. So they're and they get to be yay big, like 9-10 inches long, and I think that they essentially would emerge like they should be emerging from eggs now, and they stay in the water. I think that they will come out from the water maybe end of July is what what I recall, but I'm not 100% sure. And then it takes them a couple years to get into breeding, and their life cycle, their breeding cycle and how long it takes them to get to sexual maturity is different. Actually, I think depending on temperature, where in like further south, I think they reach sexual maturity earlier. And here it's maybe it's 2 or 3 years to get to sexual maturity.
Mhm. And how long do they stay in the woods versus visit those pools?
So they're in the pools for a couple weeks at most. That said, the males migrate first, and then the females, and sometimes the males could be in there for a month if like the weather conditions are very variable. It's very hard to tell, but they're very specific about like it needs to be over 40 degrees and raining. Like the first rainy nights, that's when big night happens, but they're also not very specific. This past year, I was like, oh my goodness, I have to close the roads because it had rained earlier in the day and it was like 68 degrees and it was wet enough that I saw all these frogs in the road. And I'm just like, well, it's not raining, but frogs are moving. Salamanders might be moving. And sure enough, that was the case. And people were at Henry Street anyway. So like, they like to not follow the rules. In the later on into the season that it goes, the less picky they are in terms of what those rules might be. Like, I've even seen them like during the day once. Like I was just like, "What are you doing here?" But it was like, it was raining and it was like a weird year a couple years ago. So
Chef Alex, you had another question?
Is my hand up?
You said you had two questions.
Oh, he answered them. One was life cycle, the other was how far into the
Oh,
woods
okay.
they travel, and he said about a quarter of a mile.
Okay, got it. Thanks. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. It's cool to
Sure.
see the data.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see, I've got like tons of pictures. If you would like to see pictures, happy to show you some.
Yeah, maybe a few
Or
pictures to tie it up.
so, sure. Let's see. So I think I'm on this. So, this is the type of salamander we're talking about. The
Oh,
mole
we can't
salamanders.
see your screen. I think you
Oh,
have
what
to
happened?
reshare it.
All right. Sorry. All right. So this is the type of salamander. Just so you're looking at it, the mole salamander. I can just go through quickly. They're not endangered. I've got some, they're highly camouflaged. So like it's at night, it's really hard to see them. I do encourage people to use red lights as well. And I talked about the other species. I won't take you through all the species, but in terms of habitats, they like to be in, it has to be vernal pools. It needs to be certain depth when they lay their eggs. They different than wood frogs, which they kind of float on the top. They're kind of looking for a Goldilocks part of the vernal pool. It needs to be pretty big. It's interesting, the red maple swamp, like I'm working with Erin potentially to get it labeled as a vernal pool, even though it has an inlet and an outlet. I've never seen fish in there, but like it's a really big area, which is helpful. And then when they come together, there's what's called a congress. So the males go first, and they lay their spermatophores before the females come in like areas that are like the best for laying eggs, I would imagine. And then they bring the females to their spermatophores, and then the egg masses come after that. Like in the spermatophores look like white dots. Like I went too early once and only saw spermatophores, and like there's a single spermatophore. And then the egg masses are really interesting. Sometimes they're clear, and there's also these white ones, and like don't know why, but like both are viable. And then each egg mass can be between 12 and like 250 egg masses. So there can be eggs, I should say, and the embryos you can kind of see they have this jelly around them. So it's really like eggs for frogs have no jelly, but these salamanders have these very distinct egg masses. And very interesting with them is that you see this green inside of the egg masses. They actually have an algae that grows in the eggs and so like these vernal pools are an oxygen poor environment. So this algae has developed with the salamanders, and that it actually goes into the eggs, and it's provides oxygen for these salamanders, and the salamanders provide them like the nitrogen. And this type of algae actually lives inside of the in the female and male, I guess, adult salamanders. So like they lay the eggs with this algae inside of it. It's the only known version of this. So it's like the symbiotic algae. So it's really cool from that perspective. And so, I mean, and then like it says like 7 to 9 days after the egg masses, this is answering a previous question, is when they leave. So they're there for however long, plus give or take a few days, and then they head back. All right, I see two hands.
Yeah, Andre, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I really appreciate it, Jeff. I had a question about about the water level this year in vernal pools, because I've got a couple on our property, and I've noticed that they were way down, and I didn't see almost any. I saw very few amphibians in it this year. Has it gone down this year, or is that just me?
I mean, I don't know if they've dried up completely, but certainly with the rains that we just got, a lot of them have been refilled up. in the case of Henry Street, my guess is after seeing all the water flow that's going through like the Mill River and like going over the dam at Puffer's Pond, that it's completely refilled. I went through there 2 weeks ago, and the water, I would say it was pretty consistent, at least at those two places. But I mean, we have had an average, not especially dry spring. I think maybe the drought for Massachusetts is now done. It was going from like severe to minor, like as of last week before all this rain. So I think that it was not out of the ordinary. Like at the Hitchcock Center near there, there's a couple of vernal pools, and one of which has like completely lost all of its water. And in previous years, when there was higher water, there were frogs that were in there, and I've had to have the kids bringing the egg masses like from one to the other one that's a bigger one, but the bigger pool had water in it throughout. So I think that it was a normal year for in terms of that.
Thanks,
Thank-
Jeff. So, we have to move into our hearing shortly, but I do see
Okay.
Commissioner, I think everybody is excited to talk about this. But Bruce and Jason, can we?
I
Okay,
was,
Bruce,
I'm
Bruce,
concerned about the agenda and the number of
Okay.
people who are here. in
Yeah.
the-
yeah, noted. Okay, I see Jason putting his hand down, but I encourage you to contact Jeff offline if you have more questions, I'm sure, if that's okay.
And every February, I do what essentially like a big training, and if you want to come to that training, you can learn about it and you can see the full presentation. It gives you the history of the Henry Street tunnels as well.
Great. Thanks so much for that work, Jeff, and for joining
right.
us tonight.
Thank
All
you,
right, have a good
Jeff.
night.
No problem. Thank
Really
you.
appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Bye-bye.
Aaron, do we have anyone here for our land use applications? If not, I was gonna bump them to the end.
Yeah, no, to my knowledge, no one's here for those. So yeah, I would support that.
Okay. All right, so let's move into our hearings, and if you are here for those land use applications, raise your hand now and we'll bump you up. Okay. All right, so hearings, general procedure for fairness to all applicants. Each hearing has 20 dedicated minutes on the agenda, 5 minutes of comments from staff, 5 minutes from presentation by the applicant or representative, 5 minutes for public comment, 5 minutes for commissioners. Project Q&A at the chair's discretion. So we do require that all submitted and revised materials be submitted to us by the Wednesday, the week prior to the meeting by close of business so that we can review it. So for all presenters, please clearly state your name, the address of the project, who you're representing, as well as preferred pronouns. And for members of the public, state your name, address, and preferred pronouns. So I think our first one is already open, and this was a notice of intent for Wendell Wetland Services on behalf of Taylor Davis Landscaping Company Incorporated for maintenance and repair of stormwater management system and wetland restoration at 71 West Pomeroy. Proposed work within bordering vegetated wetland buffer zone. So there's been a request to continue this one from the applicant, and we're not discussing it any further tonight, so I'm looking for a motion to continue.
I move that we continue the public hearing to June 11, 2025 at 7:15 PM.
Second,
Alex on the motion, Bruce on the second. Bruce,
aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, next one of opening. Okay, this hearing is being held as required by by provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended in Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under the Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is a notice of intent. This engineer on behalf of the Town of Amherst for the proposed daylighting of the Kellogg Brook, which will include restoration of bank bordering vegetated wetland and land underwater. Proposed work also includes an accessible pedestrian path and pedestrian bridge. And it's at 31 Southeast Street, map 15A, lot 20. Okay, Aaron. Would you, yeah, I think I saw Bucky here. You want to bring him in and then take 5 minutes to present?
Okay. So commissioners may remember that several months ago, we reviewed and approved an affordable housing project on the former East Street School site. The town acquired a grant to do some restoration work in association with that affordable housing project. And there's this very interesting old ball field behind the East Street School, which formerly was probably like for recreation fields, but there's a stream that comes through which many decades ago was culverted underneath the basketball courts and discharges down to the Faring Brook. And over time, the culverts have become blocked, the water's flowing subsurface, and the entire field has basically reverted to BVW, but it's still being mowed. The field has been continued to be used for recreational purposes by the apartment complex behind the project. And so the town wanted to do something to restore the stream and do some resource area improvements there for drainage, but also keep a portion of that field for recreational purposes. There is the opportunity right now for people to walk from the apartments across the school site to get down towards Fort River. And so we wanted to maintain that. And so in the course of the restoration, in order to maintain that access, we had to make sure there was a bridge and a walkway incorporated. So the town did work with Bucky to get this plan established. It's been primarily led by the planning department, but I've had quite a bit of input in terms of helping to make sure that it was designed in compliance with the regulations. So it's been reviewed by staff and revisions have been incorporated. And so you're seeing really like a final product. So I'm really interested to have Bucky share it with you today and happy to answer any questions if I can.
Thanks, Erin. Welcome, Bucky. Wanna
Hey, good evening. Thank you. Yeah, I am Bucky Sparkle, and Erin, thank you for giving half of the presentation right there for me. So it'll, just speed things right along here. What I'm going to do is share my screen here and dive in. This is the Wayfinder site, 31 South Street aerial view. And it should look familiar because of the niche engineering NOI that was approved something like a year or so ago. In this blue line, we've got the Kellogg Brook coming in. It turns into a culvert system, failed culvert system, and continues back out. And you can also see some of the old markings. I'm not sure how old this picture is, but there's even goalposts here for that area. To move the zoom window. So Erin already did this. The applicant is the town of Amherst, and Ward Smith and Heather Comey did the wetland work for the Wayfinders plan. All right, so taking a look, looking eastward here, the existing conditions, you can see the lawn athletic field in the sort of yellow and dot dash line is roughly the perimeter of the BBW. So the foreground is BBW and just the island of asphalt is not. The dashed orange line is the approximate location of the failed culvert system. There is in the region BBW land underwater and bank, but we're only going to be working within the BBW and creating land underwater and bank as part of this ecological restoration project. Plan view should be somewhat familiar, I bet, from the niche plan, but Kellogg Brook comes in and the culverts are here. Kellogg Brook continues. You can see in green the BBW line, so it's just the pavement and the developed area to the east. We're not quite sure where the BBW ends to the west. We're just assuming it is all BBW. That wasn't really delineated. It probably does piddle out somewhere, but it's mostly BBW. You could also see there's the existing pathway that cuts through the shrubbery that it loses definition once it gets out into the open, but we're going to formalize that path as part of this project. So let's take a look at what we're doing. The asphalt footprint changes because what I've done is I've used the Wayfinders plan as the template for the paved area. They're also putting a wooden guardrail around the paved area. And you can see Kellogg Brook is diverted into a new stream channel. So this is going to be a grass lined swale, circuitous flow, create a little extra bank and a little more hydraulic detention time on site before discharging at where the culverts now terminate. You can also see the path from the west is formalized. We're going to be installing an open graded stone material. That is the same material that was used out on the Amherst Wildlife Sanctuary that seems to be really quite successful now, and I'm speccing that out on all my new trail projects. And you can see this brown rectangle that is the pedestrian / DPW maintenance bridge. It is necessary to continue to maintain the property. The majority of the property is still going to be kept for recreational purposes. Overall, because we're getting rid of a culvert, daylighting a stream, we are creating 377 feet of bank. We're restoring almost 5,400 square feet of BVW and creating 282 square feet of land underwater. Quickly, it's the erosion control plan. You can just sort of see the light magenta lines where we've got perimeter controls, we've got in-channel controls. Stockpiles of materials as they come in and out are meant to be kept on the paved surface with a little bit of perimeter control around. It's unlikely, but in the event that we need dewatering, there's a dewatering area that's more than 50 feet away from the stream edge. We are also planning to build the channel, seed it, and get a good month or so growth on it, a vegetative growth, have it be fully stabilized before we terminate and actually get rid of the existing culvert and redirect the stream. So most of the channel will be fully stabilized except for a little bit of, sort of a bulkhead at the north and south ends of the channel until the day it's open for business. Looking at the vegetative restoration plan here, this is the area of disturbance that's been colored. So the very lightest areas around the path, the DPW still wants to have mowable grass there. That makes sense around a pedestrian pathway. The dark green is a blend, is the channel and, BVW as well, low elevation. So that is going to be a blend of the New England Wetland Plants wet mix, kind of the go-to seed mix for doing restoration areas. Also, we are blending in an amount of their erosion control and restoration mix. And the reason for that is just the wet mix has, slow growing plants. They take a long time to be established and they're not particularly great with velocity. So we're looking at trying to make sure the stream channel is stable after just a few weeks or a month or two. So we are adding some other vegetation there. Up this olive area is additional BVW and upland area. You can see east of the line, and we are looking to blend in conservation wildlife mix with showy wildflower mix. So it's both a food source and something somewhat attractive. And then that I almost beat the timer. That is the gist of the plan, and we're also going to add bounding. I'm sorry, just to say on the west side and on the east side, we'll have signs and permanent boundary markers to be determined. I want to talk to the DPW and see what they have to offer for that before I just specify something. But that concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Bucky. We like seeing these restoration projects, they're nice. And thanks, Aaron, for working on this too. So if there's any public comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none off the bat, I'm going to go to Bruce. Go ahead, Bruce.
Well, since this touches both of my enthusiasms, daylighting and culverts, to close the hearing.
Thanks, Bruce. I understand that there was a sort of a late notification to the Wayfinders, and maybe there might be interest in letting them just review this since they're the lessees of the land before. So in discussion with Aaron, we were thinking maybe we could queue up the order of conditions tonight, have our discussion, and then it will be a quick vote on them for the next time once we've given the Wayfinders folks to just look at it.
Of course.
Okay. Rachel.
Lovely project. I just have some technical questions. Wondering about just how I've seen stream connections perform with water flow, and wondering about the geometry of the point you're connecting in and how you're redirecting the water. If you're going to do any reinforcing at those bends and those turns to keep from scouring continuing through the newly made path.
Yeah, let's see. So let's see, the first thing is the existing culvert is going to be, as poorly as it's functioning, the primary way for Kellogg Brook to be conveyed until the channel is built and fully stabilized with vegetation. So it will be pretty easy to just remove a little bit of soil here and a little bit of soil here at the north and south ends of the project to let the stream come through. Also, that can be done ideally during some dry weather. So we're not getting a deluge of water on day one. There'll be a little bit of unstabilized earth. We are using fully biodegradable coir mats or mesh, not mats, but mesh, to stabilize the channel and the side slopes. So we should be in pretty good shape along that way. The velocities are really quite low. I looked at the 500-year storm, right? Like the biggest freaking storm that we could send at this thing that, we can conceive. And we're still getting velocities that are less than half of the velocities considered to be erosive for an enormous storm. So since that's almost never going to be the case, and even if it were the case, I don't have any concern with a vegetative surface being adequately stable for the velocities in this channel.
Okay. And do we need any sort of bankful benching and within the channel to allow for bigger flows versus lower flows?
Well, the way let me zoom in here just a little bit. If we get into some elevation questions, the reality of this is during that 25-year storm, it's never going to leave the channels. For the 100-year storm and the 500-year storm, it is likely that we are going to get water as high as about almost elevation 184, which is about the bank. But you can see that 184 does come around the trail over here. So the waterway very well during the most like hurricane level storms flood into this area of the trail, flood up into this little swale, which is we need to draw a little low spot through here to pull the water off the pavement and get that into the stream. But mostly we are going to be stuck in a nice little narrow channel that's normally dry. That's I've only been to this site. I've been to this site maybe 5 times, and 4 times it was bone dry. So it's not a big system. It really is only a storm discharge system in town. So I think we're going to be in good shape.
And then the slopes within the channel, do they match the slopes upslope and downslope?
There is a wild disparity. Upslope, it is a giant floodplain. There is no channel, and no meaningful channel. When you get down, let's see my draggy around tool. When you get down to here, it is also a large, wide flooded area. So the reality is, it does become a little channelized as you get farther onto private property. There are a couple little footbridges that are maybe 5 feet long, 6 feet long to cross from edge of bank to edge of bank, and that part is a very similar profile to what we are providing through the channel through the town's property.
Thanks, Bucky. Thanks, Rachel. Jason?
Somewhat along the lines of Rachel's question, Bucky, the point where Kellogg Brook comes in, right where it's basically turning, yeah, right up there. How is
Yes.
that gonna be? You said upstream is floodplain and that's not really channelized, but what protection is gonna be there? Because it takes quite a turn if your dash blue line is.
That's because you're looking at a dashed blue line. Let's look at this. Over here, we have elevation 183.18, elevation 183.51, elevation 183.74. There is 6 inches of elevation distance all the way through here. This is a large quiescent settling pond as of today. There is no channel anymore. The culverts are not exposed. There's some suggestions with leaf movement about maybe where they are, but I couldn't find them. DPW couldn't find them. The surveyors couldn't find them. So what we're doing is we're taking water with a velocity of nearly 0 by the time it gets here, and then channelizing it. You can also see that my contours do magically just end. Isn't that a good design trick? Because we're really blending in with, we have inches. We are just taking this wide area and we're going to be lowering a sort of flume-like this northern lot line till it matches the elevation on the abutter's property at the low point. The absolute low point, I went out there, took my own measurements at the property line, is right here where I'm starting the stream. So I'm starting at the lowest possible accessible point. I bet there's actually lower ground over here. I bet it ponds, but that is not the town's property, and we don't get to do much in it. And I would rather not ditch through an existing wetland too.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bucky. Okay, I've seen no public hands raised for this project. Do we want to just discuss the order of conditions so we can queue this up for next time? Erin, do you have that drafted, or are we gonna review that next time?
I did draft the order and I put it in the folder. I can pull it up if you want, and I can run through it. If
I
you could
think
just-
while it's fresh in our minds and we've just reviewed everything, maybe we could just run through it, and then this is more administrative for the next time.
Sure. So I'm just gonna, both of the documents are the same. So I'm just gonna pull up the state version. And Bucky, I'm gonna just steal the screen for a minute.
And Bucky, you've had a chance to review these and talk to Erin about them, so
Yeah,
that's right,
earlier
okay.
earlier today, we went through a couple of minor changes, but they're really solid. I'm good with them.
Okay,
Yeah, so pre-construction meeting prior to the start of work. Just making sure that we specify no standalone black filter fabric, because I've had a bunch of contractors trying to use that by itself, and just trying to be very specific. Specifying that this work be done during dry conditions, and we are hoping for the end of this summer to do this work. So that's gonna hopefully align with that. The specification about the channel being constructed prior to the culverts being removed. I was mostly concerned about water moving through this before the channel was stabilized and fully constructed. Specifications about keeping turbid water on the site during construction to make sure that there's adequate protections provided by the contractor in the event that there's turbidity coming out of the culvert, or out of the culvert or the channel at any time. Again, specifying only biodegradable erosion control blankets, which are already in Bucky's specs. I'm just reinforcing that. And again, there's a little bit of sort of repetition in this, but I do that intentionally because sometimes contractors need reminders. No field changes, a final inspection to be completed by me prior to the removal of erosion controls. A note about snow storage, just a reminder really, because I'm concerned that contractors may try pushing snow storage into this, which we want to make sure doesn't happen. notes about permanent bounding. And so, you know, bounding in the form that we typically require for a mitigation or restoration project, split rail fencing, boulders, rebar, wooden posts, and then some sort of signage that identifies this area as a mitigation area or ecological restoration in perpetuity. And then a final inspection at the completion of all work. And those are the special conditions. The boilerplate would also be attached, but that's just what I have as a sort of a starting draft at this point.
Great, thank you, Erin. Commissioners, are there any comments or questions about the order of conditions? And so again, the point is that we have the discussion now, and presumably wayfarers aren't going to have any significant changes, but we want to give them a chance to look at the plan. Okay, seeing none. Okay, I think we can move on, but we need a motion to continue this.
Yes, I moved that we continue the public hearing for 31 Southeast Street, DEP number 0890754 with standard and special conditions.
Second.
So I just want to make sure that that's actually a motion to approve the order of conditions.
Continue the hearing.
Okay, sorry, there was a notation about standard and special conditions, so I want to, some of the wording was a little off. And the draft presentation versus what I have right now is a little different because of conversations that were had since the PowerPoint was sent out.
Then provide me with the language I need to make the motion, please.
I think it's on the screen, Bruce.
Yeah, and my apologies for that. It was a last minute thing about wayfinders having a chance to review this.
I move to continue the public hearing for 31 Southeast Street, DEP 0890754 to May 28th, 2025 at 7:45.
Yeah.
I think Rachel got that. So Bruce on the motion, Rachel on the second, Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Andre.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I see public hand up. I'll take public comment at the end of the hearings. So we already moved through the public comment period for this one. Okay, thank you, Bucky, for joining. Sorry we couldn't move this time, but we'll see you next time for a quick, hopefully.
I'll be
approval.
back. Thank you very
thanks.
much.
Have a good
Take
night.
care.
Okay, so next up, new hearing. So this hearing is being called held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth and Act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended in Article 3.31 Wetlands Protection on the Town of Amherst General Bylaws. So this is a notice of intent for GZA Geo-Environmental Incorporated on behalf of Archipelago Investments LLC and Hampshire College for proposed mixed-use residential development at 0 West Bay Road, map 25B lots 52 and 0 West Street, map 25B lot 58. Proposed work includes construction of 3 mixed-use residential structures with associated parking, stormwater, remediation, and landscaping, portions of which are located within buffer zones to bordering vegetated wetlands, DEP number 0890752. Okay, and we're gonna provide 5 minutes for Erin, and then Erin, I assume you see names for the applicant, if you could bring them in. Or applicant could raise hand. Yeah, there we go. I can bring them in if you want to start the presentation.
Sure. So the first thing I just want to say for everybody's information, including the public, is that I did file a conflict of interest, appearance of a conflict of interest form with the town manager on this particular project, and was approved to continue on serving the town through this project review, primarily because I have relatives who live within 750 feet of the site. So I still feel like I can, they're actually not direct abutters. They're not within the abutter notification area. So I still feel like I can conduct an unbiased review of the project. So I just wanted to disclose that information at the start of the hearing. So I did send some initial comments to the applicant on this project, and I know at least one commission member has sent some questions to the applicant. And I want to give the applicant the opportunity to respond to as many, questions and comments as possible. So I'm going to yield some of my time. I think the initial comments that I wanted to share were just that I think the first place to start is the wetland delineation on this, and to make sure that the wetland delineation is accurate. The delineation that was provided to us was over 3 years old at the time of submission. So I did ask that the applicant have their wetland professional go back out and verify that the wetland line is still accurate. I understand that that Ward Smith, the wetland scientists on this project, did go back out and took a second look and changed some flags. I did advise the applicant that we would need to see the revised plans that show that revised wetland boundary, and they didn't have adequate time to get us the plan a week ahead, but they wanted to proceed with the presentation tonight. So I just wanted to put that out there. And from a staff perspective, I haven't delved into the stormwater review in any great detail, because I feel like the first step is for the commission to determine whether or not they're willing to issue a variance to the 50-foot no work zone, which is associated with this project. And we also have an exceedance on the 20% alteration threshold. I believe that this project is altering up to 70% of the buffer on the site. So there's a couple local bylaw regulatory areas where allowances were exceeded. And so I want to make sure that the commission is comfortable with the waivers, the waiver requests, and that there's some additional opportunity for the applicant to present what their proposed mitigation plan might be, so the commission can consider whether it's willing to grant those waivers. So I'll yield my time back for others to because I know there's going to be a lot of comment on this tonight, but those are just the basics.
Thanks, Erin. Welcome, Dylan and Mark. Is there anybody else here that I should let into panelists?
No, Kyle Wilson wanted to be here. Unfortunately couldn't make it last second, so I'll let Mark formally present, but I'm here on behalf of Archipelago to answer any questions we might have.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll hand it off to Mark.
And Mark.
There should be 2 other representatives from GZA, Steve D'Ambrosio and Robin Capisa. I can't pronounce her last name off the top of my head.
Okay, Robin, if you're here, raise your hand and I'll find you that way. Thanks. I got Stephen. Okay. Well, if you want to start your 5-minute presentation, please feel free. One of your other colleagues should be joining.
So, the site consists of 2 parcels, as Aaron said. The beginning said 0 West Bay, which is parcel 52, and 0 West Street, which is parcel 58. The proposed project is a 3-structure, multi-story, multi-use residential structure with associated parking and drainage. The existing lot 52 currently slopes away from the BVW and consists of a meadow with brush, weeds, and some mature trees that are along West Bay Road. There's approximately 24,600 square feet of buffer within the 0 to 50, which is this orange line. And then another 26,800 square feet of buffer between the 0 to 50 to 100 on the 0 West Bay parcel. As you can see by the contours, the existing parcel kind of grades away from the BVW. The land parcel, or parcel 52, I have those backwards, has approximately 10,752 square feet of buffer between the 0 to 50 and approximately 6,000 26,150 square feet of buffer between the 50 to 100. Again, the property generally grades away from the resource area towards the corner of Lannon and West Street. This parcel is also mostly overgrown brush with some portions of meadow and small sections of trees. The proposed project consists of 2 buildings on the West Bay property and a connecting drive called a Runov that's going to connect the intersection of Gold Way and Lannon to Rambling and provide parking and pedestrian access between the two. As you can see, this is where we encroach the most on the 50-foot buffer. The site itself, or the proposed grading of the site, is all away from the wetland resource area. And the storm drainage or stormwater will be collected in deep sump catch basins and routed to a subsurface infiltration and detention system before being discharged to the municipal drainage system at the corner of Gould and West Bay up here, if you can see my mouse. The 0 West Street property will consist of 1 multi-story, multi-use building with associated parking. The stormwater, again, will be collected in deep sump catch basins, routed to a subsurface infiltration and detention system prior to be discharged to the municipal system. Again, the site is grading away from the resource area. The comments that we received from the commission member here, and we provided Aaron with a written response to them. Some of the comments we are still working on preparing an actual plan response to. One of the large questions that Aaron had was what we would be proposing for mitigation. And after discussing with the client, Ohio and Archipelago, currently a proposed mitigation would be plant native pollinator plants within the between the driveway and fence, or the Wunoff and fence, and then between the fence line and the BVW to control the invasives that were found on site. Another large part of this is both properties contain lead arsenic that will be removed, and that's the reason why we are showing a chain link fence along the BVW area to delineate where our client will be removing the contaminated soil. And that's about all for the presentation at this point.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we're going to go to public comment. So please raise your hand if you'd like to make a statement. We're going to keep public comment to 2 minutes, and Aaron will be using the timer. So when you hear the music, please end your comment. Thank you. I see Jennifer Hickson's hand up first. So Jennifer, I'm going to allow you to talk.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the commission. So at the last meeting that couldn't take place, I sat and listened to all of you talk about all of the animals that were in your yard. I think the list was deer, bear, bobcats, foxes, and we have those too right here in our neighborhood, and they will be completely obliterated by this project. I want to just say again, there's a reason why bylaws are created in towns to protect from structures that don't belong in places to not be built. And I think this is one of those perfect examples. So again, I appreciate the time to comment, and I will direct the rest of my time to our property manager, Gary Spaeth, if that's okay with you, Chairperson.
Is Gary with you right now, or is Gary? Okay.
He's here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, I see. I'm going to go in order of raised hands, or as they appear on my screen. Maria, go ahead.
Hi, Maria Kapicki, 65 Country Corners Road, she, her. I hope that you guys got a chance to read my letter that I sent to you. I'm extremely troubled by the fact that the wetlands are being not just encroached upon, but really kind of decimated. I mean, the 0 to 50, the 50 to 100, it's 80% of the 50 to 100 buffer zone. And if you look at a map, the wetlands take up about 50% of both of the parcels put together, right? There's very little space that anything should be built here. And I strongly, strongly, strongly encourage the Conservation Commission to hold to the wetland bylaws and not allow this. It is just far too big of a project for this space. And that's what we're concerned about. We have no objection to this area being developed, but it must be developed with respect for the wildlife, for the wetlands, for the humans that live in this area. One other thing, I realize that it is not your issue to deal with parking, but the plans that you're being shown show very inadequate parking for the development that's being proposed. And the Archipelago is saying that they're planning on having all on-site parking, but please, as much as you can, pay attention to the fact that if that was really the case, there would have to be a lot more of this property taken up with more impervious surface to accommodate the number of parking spaces that would be required. 262 bedrooms, only 140 parking spaces for residents. That's just not going to fly in this area of South Amherst, where I wish we could walk everywhere we'd love to go, but you can't. You need a car to get around. And so, again, I hope that you've read what I've sent in, and I'm looking forward to hearing you talk about the wetlands and about the stormwater when you get to that, presumably a different hearing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Priya. I have Carol McNeary.
Hello, I'm Carol McNeary. I live at 115 Spencer Drive, Amherst. I too sent a letter, and I won't repeat what's in my letter. There's two things. I used to walk around in those wetlands. I'm familiar with them, and they've got all kinds of wonderful stuff going on in there. And I think that the ecology of wetlands is way more complex than a mitigation effort to plant some trees would really impact. Wetlands are basically irreplaceable. You really can't fix a degraded wetland. The other thing is that in my wanderings in there, there's a pool. And I spent today calling around asking if anybody knew, is this a vernal pool? And nobody was really sure. But I think that in looking into this request for the special variant, special whatever, that should be investigated. And you know, there, as Maria said, there are these regulations for a good reason. There are also state wetland protections that have been in place since 1983. And I think they're there for a good reason. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Next up is Sandy.
I'm Sandy Albertson Shea. I live at Applewood at 222 Spencer Drive. I just wanted to say that I'm so grateful there is a Conservation Commission that has bylaws. And while I know that this area has been zoned to be developed, I am hoping that the Conservation Commission will honor the bylaws that you have drawn up and have lived with for so long. I care about wetlands, and I'm trusting you to care about them as well. Thank you.
Sandy, I have Gary.
Hello? Can you
Yep,
hear
we
me?
can hear
Okay.
you.
Hi, I'm Gary Spaeth. I am the property manager for Hampshire Village. We have a pool that kind of abuts the property. We're right behind where you intend on building. Many concerns, not getting into the infrastructure and the drainage, but there is a wetland there. And over the last 2 years, there's been quite a bit of change. And I don't know if it's just the water table or the wetland or if it's been disturbed. Right now, if you go to our pool and our tennis court, there is a huge pond puddling that was never there before. We also have a pit in the ground with our water meter for the pool and the pool house that I need to pump out daily because it's filling up with water, groundwater. And looking at the plan and everything, I just have a hard time believing that you're going to be able to, you know, this water's going to run off. You're going to be able to hold things back. That brook, we have 2 bridges over the brook on a path going to the pool. Those bridges have been underwater for the last 2 days. So I just don't see how this area is going to work out for this project. And that's just 2 or 3 quick observations in the last couple days in the area. So I guess my big question is, what if this doesn't work out as the engineers say they will? Then what?
Okay, thank you, Gary. I have Lisa next.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Lisa Juris, and I live at 22 McIntosh Drive. I'm in the Upper Orchard condominiums just behind Atkins. I can't speak for the wildlife, but I can say that my neighbors and I really do support thoughtful development for the property. We understand the need for new housing. We're not against growth, but this project, as it currently is proposed, raises serious concerns, especially when it comes to the wetlands and protecting them. About half of it is, as you've heard and you know, half of the site falls within a 100-foot wetlands buffer zone. The plan would not only falls within that zone, but also within the 50-foot no work area, disturbing roughly half of this very sensitive space. And on top of that, about 80% of the area between 50 and 100 feet from the wetlands would also be developed, which is far more than is typically allowed. So as stated, we know the rules exist for good reasons. They help protect our wetlands, reduce flooding risk, and keep our environment healthy. So all we're doing is simply asking that the project follow the rules and be scaled appropriately for the site. We think there's a real opportunity to create something meaningful, a real village center that is includes unique, commercial use, reflects unique role for the intersection, but it deserves a plan that reflects long-term community-minded thinking, and that's what really needs to be taken into account. So we hope and trust the commission will take a close look at the scale of the project, ensure the approval stays true to the purpose of the regulations. Thanks for all you guys do for protecting us and our community.
Thanks, Lisa. Sherry?
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes. Thank you for allowing the public to speak. Archipelago has repeatedly said that the Atkins Corner site is challenging for building anything. And yet they propose a very large project that builds right up to the wetlands, which, as you all know, are critical for our future, particularly with climate change. And surely the stormwater runoff from the parking lots and the physical presence of 3 4-story buildings won't be good for the adjacent wetlands. I'm hoping that the Conservation Commission will look carefully at the existing bylaws and whether this project meets the requirements. I don't believe that it does, but I'm not an expert as you are. We do want development there, but not on this scale. And we want development that is respectful of the wetlands and the community that already exists. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Yeah, Sherry, could you give us your address, please, for the
Oh, I'm
records?
sorry. 4 McIntosh, which is in Upper Orchard, behind Atkins and behind Applewood.
Thank you, Sherry. Kathy.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great, thank you. My name is Kathy Melly, and I live at 8 McIntosh Drive, also in the Upper Orchard, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Thank you all for the opportunity to comment on this proposal. I will be brief. I want to really echo the concerns raised by my neighbors about the potential impact of this project on area wetlands and the protected environment. I'm not opposed to new housing and a village center in this area, but I would like to see this plan changed to avoid any potential negative impact. And hope the developers will consider revising their plans and coming up with something that's more modest that will comport with wetlands protection bylaws. So I really urge the commission to uphold the wetlands bylaw, deny the variance, and prevent harm to the protected environment. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy. So I see no more hands up, so I'm going to close public comment. We're going to go to commissioners. So commissioners, 5 minutes each, please. Rachel, I know you had some, oh, Jason's got you, but we'll go to Jason first. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The setback on the front on West Bay Road for the building 1 and 2, it's roughly, it appears to be roughly 37 feet. Is that a required setback? Was that 33 feet maybe? Is there a reason that it's set back at that distance? And can everything be potentially pushed forward towards West Bay Road to potentially take that Woon Earth or areas out of the setbacks?
So, oh,
Can I answer?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll jump in. You can follow after me, Mark. Does that work? If you want to go first, I can follow after you if you want.
Yeah. So the buildings are pushed towards the center of the site due to how the site grades and the high groundwater. We are proposing the subsurface infiltration systems, but they are going to be within clean fill. And to do that, to have the drainage and meet the stormwater groundwater separation requirements, we had to slide the infiltration unit to that northeastern corner of the site, which led the subsurface infiltration detention system to also be within that location. As you move closer to the BVW, the groundwater gets like 12 inches below grade. So, and as you move to West Bay, it deepens to close to 2 to 3 feet below. The other aspect and reason why the Woon Earth is where it's located is to utilize the curb cut that the town left. To us, it appeared that the town was planning on continuing Lannon to Rambling through that curb cut that they left at the end of Lannon Lane. Dylan, if you want to respond to anything else.
No, that sums it up pretty good, Mark. The topography made it challenging. There was only one spot to put the water retention on site, which kind of set the layouts of the buildings. The other factor is the topography and where parking can be put. and ADA compliance. If you shift the drive aisle too far to the north, you start to get a steep pitch, and it impacts the ADA requirements needed for parking.
You mentioned it was mentioned that the infiltration basin is going to be in Queen Phil. It's my understanding that this area is heavily contaminated with lead arsenic in the soil from the former apple orchard operations that were there, and that a significant amount of soil is going to need to be removed. There's going to be a significant export of contaminated soil and then import of Queen Phil. Can you discuss how much soil you're going to be exporting and how much you're going to be importing to lift this site?
I do not have an approximate number or quantity of the amount of clean fill that's going to be brought onto the site. I know Archipelago is planning on removing the 12 inches of impacted soil across the site up to the shown chain link fence. That is going to be the limit that's going to delineate where the soil has been removed and where there's still lead arsenic. Multiple concepts will develop through the planning process, and each one we kind of reduced the amount of fill that was going to be brought onto the site. To get the drainage to work now, we're bringing close to 7 feet of fill in that northeastern corner, I believe, off the top of my head. But overall, I don't know the exact quantity of fill that would be brought onto the site.
Were there any alternatives where the WUNRF doesn't exist and that area is just left, for lack of better terms, undeveloped, and any parking shifted to, the eastern roadway appears to be unnamed, or Lannon Way having additional parking? Lannon Lane, I'm sorry.
There was
It down.
Go ahead,
some of
Mark.
the first concepts had the buildings closer to the wetland, but then we realized the 75-foot building setback and the steep driveway incline, which the town itself has a regulation on. It can only be a certain percentage pitch. And then in order to get the drainage to work, that driveway would only be able to be accessed off of Rambling. And the purpose of the driveway is to create that community aspect and let the people that live in the condominiums west of the proposed development to access Atkins easily without having to walk along West Bay Road, which is busy and there's no sidewalk currently.
And another important part is we've talked with Chief Bascom of the Amherst Fire Department, and they need that drive aisle access in order to service those buildings appropriately. So something I do want to bring up about that WUNRF and the topography, though, that Mark mentioned in his presentation, is it does pitch away from the wetlands. I thought that's pertinent to know.
Thanks. Jason, are you good?
Yeah, my only other question would have been, is there not going to be a sidewalk installed along West Bay Road? It appears that there's one.
Yeah, there is a sidewalk. We're going to complete the town's sidewalk on West Bay Road. The WUNRF would be accessible to the public to be able to walk through, though. There'd be a sidewalk on the northern side of that WUNRF.
Okay, but there will be, if that WUNRF didn't exist, there would still be a nexus using the sidewalk on West Bay Road.
That is correct. The issue we ran into is the fire access drive aisle.
Okay.
I also want to caution that we show the sidewalk with the belief that we would get permission from DPW to install additional catch basins along West Bay Road. Because as of right now, that is the town's drainage along West Bay Road, is the swale on the southern side that we would have to fill in with the sidewalk. So if the town wouldn't allow us to install the catch basins, then we would probably remove that sidewalk and keep it a swale.
Okay, thank you. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I have comments in a couple of areas. I'll be brief as I can. And I want to start by saying that my comments are made in all due respect to the folks that have worked on this project to develop it in partnership with Hampshire College, who owns the property. And the town has been looking for housing to increase. And I understand that there is a possibility that even childcare would be provided on the ground floor of one of the buildings. And that would be very useful. But I want to say that I have a dim view of granting waivers that you request. I won't go into any more detail, but it would take an awful lot for me to be convinced that granting those waivers is useful when I think there might be some alternatives. Hampshire College found property to build the Yiddish bookstore. It also found property to build the Eric Carle Museum. Mitigation that you suggest, planting plants, I could not agree that that's mitigation for the impacts that your project would cause. Mitigation starts with avoidance and is followed by minimization. So avoidance would be to if the project is to stay on the same site, avoidance would be to reduce the project, eliminating a building, for example, giving more room for parking. Minimization follows the same path. And I would suggest that Archipelago and you folks sit down with Hampshire College, who has a big interest in this project, and see if there isn't another site on the campus that has far fewer challenges. And see if you can't build the same project elsewhere on their campus. Obviously, there was a big discussion that went on to choose this area for this project. I'm not privy to that. I don't need to know any of that discussion. But if there is an area on the campus where this same project could essentially be picked up and put down, absent wetlands, absent controversy, absent challenges, it would be a hell of a good project for the town, and it would accomplish a lot of things the town's looking for. So I would encourage you to have that conversation with Hampshire College. Even if you've already had the conversation, please have it again. That's all I'll say. Thank you very much. And again, I say this with due respect for all the work you're doing to provide a project that in another site with less challenges would be beneficial to the town.
Thanks, Alex. Andre?
Can I respond to Alex's comment?
Oh, sure.
For context, this site is being proposed by Hampshire because it's the last parcel in a village center. This project is not student housing. This is mixed use multifamily housing. It's something that Hampshire thinks they don't have a use for and can see the town having value for to increase tax base. And that's why the site has been proposed. Thank you.
So can I just say, offer a comment to what Dylan just said?
Sure, you have 30 seconds left in your 5. Go ahead.
Okay, so Archipelago is talking to Hampshire about buying this parcel. If it is permitted, then you would buy this parcel from Hampshire, which gives them money that they need. If you picked it up and put it on the campus, I would hope that the same deal could go forward, that parcel could be located someplace where Archipelago could in fact buy it and add to the tax base of the town.
Okay, Andre, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think I can improve on anything that Alex said. I concur with his determination that that this is a bit much to kind of let slide, if you would. I mean, we do have these bylaws for a reason, and we've heard a lot of folks today saying they're trusting us to care for these wetlands, and that the bylaws are made to prevent essentially the destruction of or the too much wetland destruction. So I just wanted to add my opinion in concurrence with Alex.
Thanks, Andre. Any other commissioners? Okay, so I just want to, oh, go ahead, Rachel.
I just want to iterate, I don't want to take you through all the details in my letter, and I appreciate your response to the letter, but I will be looking, you know, if this project continues to be reviewed, I will be looking for answers to my questions in detail. And I know a lot of work has gone into the plan so far, but it's not at a level yet that we would expect to see for review with the commission. And you know, if we don't see it on the plan and we approve it, then we're like blessing you to do something, and we have to live with that as, you know, half-baked plan. And so we want to see something really designed and engineered. We want to know that it's going to work. There are regulations for that, and we're expecting to see that complied with. Also, this is just a comment that I'm torn about even commenting on, but I'll say it here. A WUNRF is a great thing, and I encourage you to look at the precedents and what they look like, because what you're proposing is not a traditional WUNRF. So if it's a parking lot, call it a parking lot. Thanks.
Thanks, Rachel. Bruce?
I'm largely in agreement with Andre and Alex, and my simplified version of it is I don't feel comfortable with any more than just the barest minimal encroachment on the buffers, the different kinds of buffer zones that are set up for a purpose. I don't feel a need to be rigorously strict about it, but it better be pretty minimal. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. So yeah, I wanted to bring it back to the wetland and the delineation. So I understand that some flags were recently moved by the wetland scientist to refresh the delineation. So that's new information that we haven't yet reviewed, and I think we'll want to go out on the site to look at that again. So the NOI here is asking us both to approve the wetland boundaries and the project at the same time, rather than starting with an ANRAD and going forward with the NOI. So I just want to poll and discuss with the commissioners what your thoughts are on a peer review. Well, first, I guess a second site visit if anyone's interested in that, and then I see hand, and then discussing a peer review on the wetland delineation if there's interested in that, and timing. So after the site visit, do you feel no need for a site visit and want to request it now? And I think we need to get the wetland delineation defined before we start talking about the stormwater. So if anyone wants to raise their hand and opine on that, maybe I'll just take a poll. So let's see. Does anyone raise your hand if you're comfortable with starting out with a second visit to see the wetland delineation and then discussing a peer review on the wetland? Okay, that's a majority. Does anyone want to move forward with a peer review without looking at the wetlands delineation again? Okay, so it looks like we are requesting a second site visit to see the updated flaggings on the wetlands. And I assume they're marked and ready to look at. Okay, great. And we have updated maps
We don't
And
have an
that's-
updated plan received yet, so we'll have to receive that prior to scheduling a site visit.
Okay. All right, so we assume that we would be continuing this tonight just because we haven't received all the information in a timely manner, but we're gonna I guess we'll take our next step with another site visit to look at those wetland sites. So I would ask that you just talk to Aaron about that offline. And again, reviewing Rachel's comments, I think we're all waiting for some answers to that and considering some of the comments made by commissioners tonight. And I guess I do want to offer for some context for previous projects. When we're looking at mitigation, it's been, you know, on the order of 3, 5, even 30 to 1 replication. So I can tell you that the plantings, pollinator plantings on the borders would not be considered mitigation for the development of the BBW and encroachment in the 50-foot. Okay, any last questions, comments? Okay, Jason.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what Rachel said about the WUNRF and its purpose. And also, I don't know if this is necessarily an appropriate comment to make here either, but I've heard this project be kind of presented in two ways. One, that it's for Hampshire College, and then the other that it's for like market rate family housing. And if it's for Hampshire College, you know, we don't get into parking or anything like that, but if it's for Hampshire College, I would think that reducing the parking in the WUNRF or potentially pushing it to other places would be something that could be done to get some of this project out of the buffer zones because it is right across the street. And so I would like to hear it presented as it's really truly meant to be. It sounds nice that it's family housing, but then previously I've heard that it's basically for Hampshire College. So I'm a little confused as to what the actual intention is for it as well. And if it is, like I said, if it is for Hampshire College, I think some of that parking could be moved out of that WUNRF area.
So
that
the
something-
original, okay.
Yeah,
So
go
the
ahead,
original
please.
notice of intent application referenced the college housing, and that was a mistake on GZA's part. We assumed that that's what the plan was, since it was dealing with Hampshire College. We were then informed that it is not. It is going to be market rate housing. So we issued a revised notice of intent application with that language removed.
Yeah, and we saw your correspondence in our folders clarifying that. So I think Jason, are you satisfied with that explanation? Yeah, okay. All right. So I think we know what we need to do next. And so in that case, we're looking for a motion to continue this.
Move to continue the public hearing for 0 West Bay Road and 0 West Street to May 28th, 2025 at 7:35 p.m.
Second.
Andre on the motion, Bruce on the second, Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, thank you, Dylan, Steve, and Mark for joining us. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night. Okay. Next up, we have notice of intent for R. Levesque Associates Incorporated on behalf of Lawrence Hanson for the reconstruction of a proposed two-family dwelling unit at 72 Curtis Place. Structures, stormwater, and parking are proposed to be located within buffer zones and bordering vegetated wetland DEP number 0890753. So the applicant has requested a continuation for this one.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Bruce.
On my version, it says you need to read something as the chair.
This
Was
one's
that-
open, right? What do I need to read as the chair?
There was a revision to the PowerPoint after I sent it out, which was the opening, but we came to the determination that it had already been opened at an earlier meeting.
Okay, yeah.
And my
so-
apologies. Sometimes there's some last minute changes when Michelle and I meet, so that was the edit.
Okay, so it's open, we're good, and we're looking for a motion to continue.
I move to continue the public hearing. Oops. That's the wrong one. Sorry. Somebody else do the motion.
I'll move to continue the public hearing for 72 Curtis Place to May 28, 2025 at 7:40 p.m.
Thank you. Second.
Jason on the motion, Alex on the second, Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay. Next up, we have a request for minor modifications to the order of conditions for 395 West Street, DEP number 0890701. Aaron, do you want to introduce this briefly? You're muted.
Yes. So I was approached by the landowner who's just mobilizing to start work for a project at 395 West Street. And I know Bruce has been keeping a close eye on this one because the erosion control installation has taken considerably longer than we would ordinarily see on a project. And for those who aren't familiar with the site, it's the Amherst Office Park, which houses the USDA offices, and there's some housing in there. And there's also like Amherst Gymnastics is in that same part of that same development area. But just to the north of that project, there is a single family home, which has a driveway which goes over, it has kind of like a berm that goes over a wetland. It was obviously permitted a long time ago. And then there's a single family house back there. And the proposal is to redevelop that single family house lot into apartments. This project was approved, I want to say 2021 or 2022. Not sure which commissioners may have been on the commission at that time or if that was permitted under the old board. But the issue that the landowner raised is that the town recently reconstructed the roundabout, and in the course of doing so, did a bunch of repairs to the catch basins, which are in the roadway around Route 116. And so previously, because the catch basins weren't very functional, there wasn't a lot of water coming off Route 116 and entering in the wetland that is to the south of the driveway. All of the catch basins had failed basically, and the water was just running down Route 116 and going directly towards the Plum Brook. But after that work was done on the roundabout and Route 116, all of those drainage structures were repaired. And now that landowner is seeing a considerable amount of water coming off Route 116 and entering the wetland, which is to the south of that driveway. And the concern that he's having is that wetland to the south is filling up with water, and he's using that main access road during the demo and grading and initial construction phases for construction access. And he's very concerned that the wetland is going to become inundated and overtop the roadway during construction. And so he's requested basically to remove, and I can pull up the request, but basically like a 3 foot by 3 foot stone trench to be constructed perpendicular to the driveway to be able to like put some stone and a 12-inch culvert pipe to convey water from the wetland on the south side to the wetland on the north side. So if water needs to move during that project, and we've got siltation barriers up now, if water needs to move from one side of the wetland to the other during construction, that it's not going to wash out the silt fence. So that's basically the request. It's particularly complicated because this is all natural heritage and endangered species area for a threatened turtle. And right now the erosion controls aren't completely installed. The silt fence is installed partially. So the request before you is basically just to modify the plan to install this drainage pipe during construction. And just to give the commission a bigger picture view of what what's going to happen is ultimately that driveway that's between these two wetlands is being removed as mitigation for the project, and there'll be a pedestrian boardwalk that's constructed from the where the apartments are going to be to West Street. So there'll be just a pedestrian walkway, boardwalk, and that whole driveway is going to be coming out at the end of this project. It's temporarily only being used again for demo and the initial phases of construction and grading. And then once those construction phases are complete, then that driveway is coming out altogether. So that's a little bit of backstory on it.
Bruce.
So if they're going to take the driveway out later, why can't they use the car access that they're going to have by some other pathway? Why can't they use that for the construction pathway also and take this out now and just stop this?
That was my that was my first question. So I'm glad you asked it. So they are concerned about the level of for the initial phases of construction, they're concerned about the vehicle traffic going through the existing parking lot. And so they wanted to utilize this existing paved driveway as the construction entrance for the initial phases to just not disrupt the businesses and the apartments in the office park as much as possible. Also, there's a series of infiltration basins which do partially come down from the west side of the site. They're actually east of the apartment building, but they're and I can pull up a plan if this is easier to visualize. But anyways, they're gonna need it for grading purposes to pull some of the material out down through that eastern entrance.
Jason.
Thank you. I'm looking at a set of plans that's the erosion control plans that are in the our packets, and they have the proposed construction entrance at the end of the paved driveway. So I agree with Bruce and with your initial, that's where they said they're going to put it. So I mean, they're the ones that chose that location to be their construction entrance. They didn't choose this driveway. Their erosion control plans just show basically the finished condition of the project. They don't show anything about any interim conditions.
Which
And
plan are you looking at, Jason? Sorry.
it's turtle protection letter.
Yeah,
Page
so
13 of 16.
okay. Yeah, I'm just not sure that it's the full set of notice of intent approved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at what's in.
Yeah,
It's a
that's for
signed, stamped set of plans, so I
okay.
assume that it's a part of their approved set.
Yeah, definitely. Let me just open it up, and I apologize because it's really hard for me to navigate through the file system while I'm hosting,
Okay.
but let me just see if I can grab a.
But what, and it's hard. I don't know what the current condition is, but I'm somewhat familiar with that driveway there. But if their concern is that a paved driveway is going to overtop during construction during very, very large storms, and I just don't see that as being very much of a concern in that, like, it may happen a few times, but what, 8 hours after the rain event is finished, they'll be able to use that driveway again? Like, how quickly is that water receding off of the driveway, making it passable again? As
Yeah, so
opposed to them just being, if that does happen, like they can use it as much as they can, but if that does happen where it's flooded, they still have the option of using the construction entrance that they specifically called out on their plans.
yeah, I think they were more concerned about it washing material and washing over the controls and, you know, sending sediment down into the wetland area. So I can do a quick screen share, but so the plan that's included in the turtle protection plan is sort of the finished design, but they did include there's like a sequencing. So they're in their approved plan set. And again, this isn't the complete plan set, which I can send to you guys if you'd like to see it, but this is showing finished, what we're looking at right now. Let me see if I can annotate for a second. This is the existing driveway coming in and up to a single family house, which is approximately here. So they were planning to utilize this for the demo, for the initial grading, and install of the foundation and the drainage structures, and then they were going to sort of paint their way out of the site and then remove this bermed material, and at that point restoring this. And then once all that work was done, they were going to use the alternate access, which is up here. So I did require them to submit 2 plans, one showing this is the construction entrance, which isn't this plan set, but there's another in the sequencing that shows this as the initial construction entrance. And then once that initial phase of construction is done, then they would utilize this entrance. So it's a little confused looking at the turtle protection plan. Part of the reason why I included this was just to make sure that you guys were aware that this is a site that is a sensitive site and is going to require a biologist to be doing work. And I've already had to remind them in the course of some of the initial phases that if they had heavy equipment out there, they needed to have a turtle spotter. So I am a little bit concerned about that. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention was there's literally a 4-inch pipe that's conveying water from this large wetland to this large wetland, and the water's moving from south to north. So while I agree with the comments that everybody's making, and I'm comfortable with whatever the commission wants to do here, I also recognize the landowner was trying to sort of do the responsible thing in making sure there was adequate drainage underneath this access drive during the construction phase. So, but if the commission wants more information or some additional time to consider this, looking at the full plan set, that's completely understandable. And I'm, happy to, and also if the commission doesn't think that the plan is appropriate to add the additional drainage pipe, then that's also completely fine.
Andre?
I just wanted to add a little context to the project. I do remember when we approved it, and we approved it with that access road as a temporary way for them to at least begin their project. I remember a lot of thought being put into it as well, and we were discussing for example, in that drainage pipe you just mentioned, the water going from one side to the other, where there were some invasives in the upland side of it. I'm comfortable with them using that as something that we've already agreed upon in the past, and have them shift over to the other entrance once they move out. if the, if the new culvert is going to be put in, did you say it's going to be removed, Aaron, afterward?
Right. So this would, he's only asking for this pipe as a temporary measure during construction, just to make sure that the road doesn't get overtopped. And then once that phase of construction is completed, where they've finished those detention basins, that whole driveway is coming out and that area is being restored.
All right. Yeah, I don't see a big deal with it overtopping. I think just like Jason was saying earlier, but at the same time, I believe that we've agreed to, that in essence, I don't think the proposal is too big of a burden or too big of a deal for us to go back on something we already agreed on. So.
Yeah, thanks for the context, Andre. Alex?
Aaron, what would staff's recommendation be?
That's a great question. I mean, I think all of the vetting that you guys are doing, I've gone through the same vetting process myself, and I've also questioned whether the pipe is necessary, and I've also questioned, will installation of the pipe cause more erosion during construction getting into the wetland in a rain event versus keeping it as is? And I'm hesitant as staff to say, don't allow the drainage pipe, because if it does overtop and make a mess, then this landowner is liable. But I also agree with you that the chances of it overtopping are probably pretty slim. He said that he saw the road nearly overtopped recently after a rain event, and that's what caused him to submit this request, was because he was worried about it. But he did say, which is really interesting because we've been hearing a lot from people, members of the public tonight and others, that what's happening with groundwater right now in town is very different than anything we've seen before. And so I think landowners are just seeing that and trying to be overly cautious. So I do appreciate that. And I think his heart is in the right place, and he wants to do the right thing and make sure that no damage is being caused by the project. But I have questioned also whether it's necessary or not. So I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, likely that significant flooding event that we just recently had. Okay, Bruce or Alex, are you done?
I just wanted to give some feedback to Erin. Whatever her recommendation was, I second it.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Bruce?
I'm in favor of whatever process will get them working their way back out to take the road out as quickly as possible. So then that's a contractor point of view. The one thing I would say is it probably needs more active monitoring, because part of the reason I started to look at it a lot is because I was there, I don't know, 6:30 on a Friday night, and the guy is moving the front end dozer around, taking out the sides of the road to put up, I assume, to put up the fencing. But it's like, there certainly was no biologist there then. And I just think the heart may be in the right place, but I think it's going to take some active monitoring of what they're doing.
Well, I'm really glad that you said that, Bruce, because I did bring up the turtle. I actually brought up the turtle monitoring and said, hey, you guys have a dozer out there. You guys have an excavator out there right now, and it's active turtle season, and you guys have a turtle protection plan. You guys need to have a biologist if you have that going. So I think any correspondence we have with this landowner, we need to reinforce the need for those orders of conditions and those natural heritage approvals to be followed as they were approved. So I 100% agree with you. And I am not opposed to the commission denying this request and saying, come back to us if there's a problem, but right now we want you to follow these plans as they were approved by the commission. I think that's completely reasonable, and don't see anything wrong with that determination.
Okay, let's try and wrap this one up. Jason?
Yeah, just for clarification, two things. One, it says there's an existing 6-inch pipe between the two right now, correct?
Yes.
And I thought I heard you mention a 4-inch pipe, but the letter we have is a 12-inch pipe?
Yeah, so he's wanting a bigger pipe. The pipe that's there is very small. Like it's ridiculously small. Like to me, having a pipe that small to relieve pressure on wetlands of that size and volume is, you know, it's not doing anything, barely anything at all, to drain the wetland that's to the south. So I may have said 4 inches and misspoke. It may have been 6
Okay.
inches, but I saw it in the field and it is very, very small.
How are they proposing to put the pipe in? Are they gonna cut through, lay the pipe, cover with gravel, backfill it
Yes.
with gravel, and then
Yeah.
repave on top, or just leave it
No.
as a stone trench?
Yeah, they were just going to leave it like a riprap, almost like riprap construction entrance over the pipe.
What
Just to,
size stone, like, so that concerns me a little bit because
yeah,
if this, what size stone are they gonna be? If they're cutting through that berm and there's all this water now that's getting into this southern wetland
yeah,
and
yeah,
moving through it, it's not going to go through the pipe if those rocks are not big enough. It's going
right,
to blow those rocks out.
right. I believe, and I asked that same question too, because he initially said gravel, and I'm like, gravel, that's pretty small. I was like, you're thinking more like 2 or 3 inch riprap, and he said yes. But again, I think that the request is a little vague. It's,
It's got to be 6-inch stone.
yeah.
Okay, well,
3-inch stone is going to get
we
washed
can
away, so
condition
I'm concerned
this.
with that.
Okay, I mean, the one scenario is that we allow it with the conditions that you guys are outlining right now. And one scenario is that we say we need more information, and then one scenario is saying no. So Bruce, your hand is up, so
Sorry.
is it, okay,
See whether there's any member of the public here about this one. Just out of
okay. If anyone's here for this particular hearing or discussion, please raise your hand. Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, after what I said earlier, I'll say now that Aaron's comment on, well, how about if we just leave it as is now, and if there's an issue, then we address it when it occurs. I think that's quite reasonable.
Okay, Aaron, you mentioned the landowner might have liability if something does happen. Is that, I mean, we should be considering that he's trying to
Well, he's
prevent.
concerned that the commission would come back on him with
Oh,
enforcement
I see.
action
Okay.
if the wetland to the south fills up with water and washes through his construction access and causes damage to the wetland to the north. That's what he's concerned with, is
Okay.
that the commission would get upset with
All
him
right.
that he didn't have adequate
So,
mitigation measures.
so he's laid the risk out that he wants to make sure that we're comfortable with if we move to not approve this minor modification. So I'm sensing a gel around leaving as is. I'll take a show of hand. Who's in favor of not approving this minor modification? Leaving as is. Okay, I am too. Okay, so Aaron, yeah, so please communicate to him that we understand what his concern is and that we discussed it and it's understood by the commissioners. Alex, I didn't see your hand up, but I think we had okay. What his concern is, and that we have decided collectively that we're, I guess, are we deciding collectively that we will not enforce that outcome that he's concerned about, because we're taking responsibility for our decision right now to not issue this order of conditions? Raise your hand if you agree with that statement. Yep.
I will
Okay.
agree with that statement, but I'll also say it's a paved road. If it gets over top, there shouldn't be that much sediment
Okay.
and
Good
everything going in
context.
it.
All right. I would also like to add in your communications that we are concerned about the implementation of the turtle protection plan. So I understand that several measures of barriers or buffers or should be up before work begins, and prior to that, there's supposed to be an on-site monitor. So I don't know if that's supposed to be communicated by daily, weekly monitoring reports, but trying to get some tabs on that, and maybe you could just check that he has a full understanding about what those requirements are.
I will do my best to put this
Okay.
all in writing to him to communicate it. And I think that there is some confusion, to be honest, about his understanding of the order, but I'm going to do my best to put it in writing and make sure that it's clear in a concise correspondence what your decision
Yeah.
is and what the observations are, because I think it's hearing from Bruce that he saw a machine out there at 6 o'clock on a Friday with no turtle monitor is, that's I was told there was a monitor out there and there was no monitor. So
Yeah,
that's,
maybe mention that to him as something we don't want to see going forward. Great,
yeah,
thank you.
I will.
Thanks, Bruce, for the eyes.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't think we need to move on that one, right? This is a communication to, okay, all right,
No,
so
that's fine.
monitoring reports. Is there anything? Go ahead, Bruce.
Conservation land application.
Yeah, I put those at the very end, so now I'm just going in order.
Yeah, monitoring reports I've been following up on throughout the week. The biggest one is Hickory Ridge. Hickory Ridge has had multiple issues, repeated issues with turbid water leaving the construction site. And I have had multiple communications with um, their supervisory team for construction, requesting additional measures, going on 3 weeks now and not getting any response. And finally this week I said, if I don't get a response before the meeting tonight, that I'm going to be recommending that actions be taken, because this is not okay. And they did finally respond saying that they were going to install some additional BMPs, replace some silt fencing, and also start doing some hydro seeding with Tactifier. And there is some information in the monitoring folder with the specs of what they're planning to do. So I'll be following up with them on this week and with that this week and next week. But it's been an ongoing process to kind of keep things. It's been a very rough spring season, to be honest. That site has been really, really tough. So anyways, I'm working with them to try to get the site stable as soon as possible, but it's been very challenging.
Okay, thank you. I think Bruce's hand was up first. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'll let Andre go first.
Andre?
Mighty kind of you, Bruce. Well, I just wanted to know how long have you been requesting that they do something about this?
Today, well, yesterday when I sent the email, it was my third correspondence requesting it from them. And there had been an incident 2 weeks ago with the controls being overtopped, and I requested it initially then, and then again last week, and then this week. And this week was the first time I got a response. And initially the response was, no, we're not going to do anything about it. We're going to just keep maintaining what we have. And I said, that's not an adequate solution. We need to have some permanent stabilization measures installed. And I said, if I witness any more turbid water leaving the site, that it's going to be a compliance response or a stop work.
Yeah, well, I would request that, please, because this is, they've agreed to what they've agreed to, and now they're not following through on their end, and they're not answering to you, or they're not answering your requests as well. And remember again that they requested being able to work on both sides at the same time And they can't handle what they've got right now. I mean, that goes to show that I think we made a good decision on that in the past. If this happens, if this continues to happen, I would like to hear about that so that we can take action. Thank you.
Andre, Bruce.
I had a general question for Aaron about each of if you look at all the paragraphs on your very helpful memo, they all sort of end with I've threatened, or I've suggested there might have to be a cease and desist, but it doesn't say what their response is. And I worry that all of them are putting you off, because if they'd had a response, you probably would have told us about it. So I wonder, are there deadlines that could be installed that if they go past the deadline, then it's automatic, they get a cease and desist order? I just didn't have a sense that there were steps beyond what was described in the paragraph.
Yeah, so for Hickory, it's if there's turbid water leaving the site again, they've been advised. If that's documented in a monitoring report, then it's going to result in a notice of non-compliance and or a stop work order. It really depends on the severity of the situation. For 2 of the other sites, I gave them a 30-day to file an after the fact notice of intent. And in one case, I know that they already have a consultant working on that, or at least they've told me that. They've communicated to me that they're doing that. In the other case, it was a mail notification, an email notification that was sent to them. So I do need to follow up on those. But the compliance issues are the most taxing and time-taking of anything that I do. I mean, just to give you an example, like that 82 Pomeroy, which was just that little single family house lot where they went out, they exceeded do you guys remember this? We just talked about it a couple meetings ago, where they didn't follow their plan. They modified their plan, but they never got permission from us in advance. I think one week I spent 30 hours talking to one contractor, another contractor, the landowner. Like every day they were calling me, each one of them, to talk it through and make sure they understood. And I'm like, this is madness. Like they didn't follow their plan, and it's taking more of my time and town resources to help them understand what they need to do to correct the mistakes they've made. So like it is very challenging, Bruce, and I acknowledge that. Like I do my best to keep tabs on all those things, but with all the other things we have going on, like I'm only one person, so it is very challenging, and I'm definitely doing my best to keep all the the balls in the air in terms of like juggling, but it's definitely a challenge to keep them all in order.
Yeah, certainly no criticism, but I do like the idea of sort of a 30 days or time frame, and if no benchmarks met, then it's automatic enforcement. Just queue up. I'm in support of that.
Things we could do to help as individual commissioners.
Okay.
I don't know.
Was that a question or an offer? Yeah, well, maybe consider it, Aaron, and if you can utilize us in some way, I understand that might be more management effort on your part. But yeah, keep it in mind. Okay, Alex, I think you're up.
Yeah, after we finish with Hickory, but before we adjourn, I have a question.
Okay, so we still have to get through land use and public comment. So if we're ready to move on, thank you for the updates, Aaron. Please keep us posted. And yeah, I think you have our blessings to move forward with the enforcement after the 30 days. Okay, so I'm going to do land use applications and then we'll take public comment. So just please raise your hand and I'll get you in the queue after our land use applications. So the first one is the plant survey for Hot Brook. This is an annual activity and they collect seeds to cultivate native plants used for restoration and for seed banking is my understanding. So I reviewed these before. I'm okay with it. Any commissioner questions or comments on this one? Okay, looking for a motion to approve then. CLU 2513 plant survey at Hot Brook.
So moved.
A second.
Alex on the motion, Rachel on the second, Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, next one up is UMass Outing Club plunges. So this is a weekly activity where groups of maybe 30 people are going to Puffer's Pond. The word is plunge. I don't know if they swim, but safety concerns were raised because of actually someone drowning swimming across Puffer's Pond. So I think one thing, if we approve this, is to be clear about what their liability is and that it's their own liability. And I think I'd like to suggest that they have some kind of emergency plan, or, you know, if somebody is in charge with an emergency number or something. I'm open to suggestions on this. Jason?
I would agree with your concerns as well as the potential concerns. I don't think bacteria is going to be an issue potentially at this time of year, but it may, as we've had a lot of rain recently. So they
Make
need
them
to
aware.
be aware of that as well.
Yeah. Right. So there's no testing done in the winter. And if, you know, dog poop is a major source of that E. coli, then we can expect it to be there in the winter too. We just haven't tested and don't know. So let's put
Yeah,
that
it's
on the
getting
list.
older.
Yeah. Bruce?
I may have misread it, but it looked to me as though the start date and the end date were the same date. So I didn't understand the logic of the calendar.
Yeah, they do this all year long, is my understanding. I don't know exactly when they start or when they end. I think he mixed up his when he filled out the application. He didn't do it right.
The year.
Come again?
Like the year should be different.
Yeah,
Should
like
be-
maybe he
okay.
meant start one year and finish the next year or something. What I know is that they were out there plunging when our land manager saw them and approached them and said, you guys need to file a land use application for this activity. So they did follow up and file the permit. But yeah, I agree with you, Bruce. I looked at it and I was really confused, and it was unclear to me, sort of the administrative. I think somebody in the group just filed the permit on behalf of everyone.
Yeah. So I guess I would request that there's a point of contact for the group just because of the safety concerns here, and then maybe relay that they're doing it at their own risk. I mean, I don't know if this is the point of them signing a waiver, or we can just state that that they have emergency contact numbers and are aware of the E. coli risk. Jason?
Out of curiosity, during the summer, if I were to go and visit Puffer's Pond and swim in the summer, do I need application, land use application?
Well, it's
If you
like
brought a
30
group of,
people.
yeah, if you brought a group of 30 people to an event there, yeah, you would. If you showed up with
Yeah.
a neighbor group of 30 people for an event, you would.
I think
So
that's in our
if
land
we
use
were
regs.
just like, hey, we're all going to Puffer's Pond to go swimming, and more than 30 people, like what's the cutoff number? If
So
if
yeah,
me
it's
and 15 of my closest friends get together and go swimming up there, do we need a land use application?
it's really meant for like an organized event, like around an organization or use of the land by like a single group or something like that. And this is one of the things that we lay out in the land use policy, is like, what is the trigger point? And so
Yeah, I would say this meets the criteria for when we would require. So some organized reoccurring event with more than 15 people or something is probably what it says. Andre?
To help you, Jason, in the Park Service, it was 10 people. To be considered commercial, for example, or to be considered for a permit. I think in the state right now might do 20 or 25, I'm not sure, but it varies among agencies. How many people is the cutoff, for example? But yeah, anyway, that just hopefully that helps. I just wanted to add that it's probably a good idea to have folks sign a waiver, but I would suggest not and no insult in my suggestion, Aaron, but I would suggest to just run it by the town council. COUN.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the town attorney.
Yeah. The council to see. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Any public comment, please raise your hand. And I think, and Bruce, you're always the best at telling me what I've missed. Did I get to everything on our agenda?
So, except the
Okay. Except what?
adjourning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm seeing no hands. Go ahead, Aaron.
So was this was that an approval of the land use application?
Oh,
for
sorry. Yeah,
Puffers?
let's tie that up. So
Or-
I laid out a few warnings and we're gonna run it by town council, but how about given approval by town council? I don't know. So if town council says we need a waiver, I feel like we're gonna have to reconfigure what we're
Yeah.
writing here.
Do you want to wait and just tie it up at the next meeting
Sure,
after
let's
we?
do
Okay.
that.
Okay, that's fine.
Thanks. All right. I'm almost there. Okay. I think that's it. So now we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Except a comment.
I asked,
Oh, right. Sorry, Alex. Go ahead.
I have two questions. First has to do with what we voted on last Friday, was to put an item on time on the agenda to begin discussing updating our regulations. So my question is, when do you think that will be on the agenda?
June.
My second question is, what is the next land use regulation that we will consider?
Okay. Yes. So June is what we're working on, Aaron and I, for putting that topic on the agenda. What is our next land use? You're in charge of that one. What do we have left? Did we have a queue for it?
I was trying to remember what we delivered.
Okay, well, how about we put it on the next agenda unless it's a very packed meeting and
Put what up?
then a land use subcommittee topic.
Yeah, so we have to finish up the rules and regulations that would involve what was prepared and distributed. And I thought there was another document that we prepared, but I didn't look before this meeting.
Okay.
There's supposed to be a thing on beavers, and I've been ill, so I haven't been able to move that one forward. But that will happen in June. I'm sorry, I've just been really ill.
That's not a problem. So I think we've distributed like the regulations, rules and regulations already. I think people have seen those, right?
Yeah, they should.
Okay. Yeah, so why don't we go with that one? And what I would like to suggest is that we put the time, the 20 minutes on the agenda, and then we confirm what's already been included in the packets. And so the topic will be announced shortly with material.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's it.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. All right, thanks everyone. Aaron, maybe we could just rendezvous at some point to just check in about what the land use subcommittee materials are, because I need a refresher on that too. Okay, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good
Night,
night.
everybody. Good night.